It was supposed to be just another ordinary business afternoon until a luxury sedan stopped in front of a crowded city park, and one simple act changed 3 lives forever. A billionaire CEO bent down to pick up a worn leather wallet lying beside a bench, expecting to find a driver's license or a few dollars. Instead, tucked carefully behind the transparent sleeve was an old faded photograph of a smiling elderly woman holding a tiny baby girl wrapped in a pink blanket. On the back of the photograph were 7 handwritten words that froze the CEO where she stood: "My daughter. Forgive me before it's too late." The handwriting belonged to the CEO's own mother. In that breathtaking moment, the successful woman who believed she had buried every painful memory from her childhood realized that the stranger who had lost this wallet carried a secret connected to the family she had spent decades trying to understand. Before this emotional journey continues, if you believe kindness can change lives, forgiveness can heal generations, hope should never be abandoned, and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel. Every act of support helps our community grow stronger, and together our family can keep sharing stories that remind the world compassion still matters. Genevieve Holloway had built Holloway Dynamics into one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. Financial magazines praised her fearless leadership. Television hosts admired her intelligence. Investors respected her discipline. Yet no article ever mentioned the loneliness hiding beneath every achievement. She had been raised believing her father disappeared before she was born and that her mother, Meredith, had sacrificed everything to give her a successful future. Meredith never discussed the past. Whenever Genevieve asked about old family photographs or relatives, her mother gently changed the subject. Over the years Genevieve stopped asking, convincing herself that success could replace unanswered questions. A few yards away from the park bench, the wallet belonged to a single father named Callum Mercer. He worked 3 jobs to support his 8-year-old daughter, Elodie. Every morning began before sunrise and every afternoon was filled with deliveries, maintenance work, and cleaning offices. His clothes were always neat despite years of wear. His smile remained warm despite exhaustion. People noticed how carefully he counted every dollar before buying groceries, but few realized he secretly skipped meals so Elodie could enjoy fresh fruit after school. The photograph inside his wallet was his greatest treasure because it had been given to him by the woman who raised him after he was abandoned as an infant outside a community clinic. Callum returned to the park only minutes after realizing his wallet was missing. Panic covered his face because every identification card, every dollar he had earned that week, and the irreplaceable photograph were inside. When he saw Genevieve holding it, relief washed over him before quickly turning into confusion. The elegant businesswoman stared at the old picture as though she had seen a ghost. Genevieve handed the wallet back slowly, unable to hide her trembling hands. She asked where the photograph had come from. Callum explained that his adoptive mother, Eleanor Mercer, had given it to him shortly before she passed away. Eleanor had discovered him as a newborn decades earlier after volunteering at the clinic. She never knew his biological parents, but among the blanket wrapped around him was that single photograph with the handwritten message on the back. Eleanor had always believed one day the picture would lead him to the truth. Genevieve could barely breathe. She knew every curve of her mother's handwriting. She remembered watching Meredith write birthday cards with the same graceful letters. Somehow this stranger possessed a photograph that should have existed only in Meredith's hidden memories. Instead of returning to her office, Genevieve cancelled every meeting for the afternoon. Her assistants had never seen her walk away from an important board presentation, but for the first time billion-dollar contracts felt meaningless compared to one fragile photograph. Callum hesitated when she asked if they could visit Meredith together. He had spent his entire life accepting that his past might remain a mystery forever. Hope was dangerous because disappointment hurt more each time. Yet something inside him whispered that this unexpected encounter was not an accident. Meredith lived in a quiet retirement cottage surrounded by colorful flowers she carefully watered every afternoon. She smiled warmly when Genevieve arrived but instantly turned pale after noticing Callum standing beside her. Then her eyes settled on the old photograph. The watering can slipped from her hands, spilling water across the garden path. Years of carefully protected silence collapsed within seconds. Meredith admitted that long before Genevieve was born she had been a frightened teenager forced into impossible circumstances. Her parents had demanded she surrender her first baby for adoption, insisting she would destroy her future if she tried to keep him. She had secretly tucked that photograph inside the blanket before nurses carried the infant away. Every year afterward she searched adoption records, hired investigators, and wrote countless letters that were never answered. Eventually officials declared the records incomplete, and hope slowly faded into quiet heartbreak. Callum stood speechless as decades of unanswered questions finally gained shape. He had spent his entire life wondering whether someone had ever loved him before Eleanor found him. Now he learned that a young mother had fought to leave behind the only thing she could have photographed, carrying her promise that she never stopped loving him. Genevieve felt the ground disappear beneath her certainty. The lonely childhood she believed belonged only to her mother suddenly expanded into something far greater. She realized she had unknowingly grown up with a brother whose existence had been erased by fear, shame, and impossible choices. Tears flowed freely as Meredith apologized again and again. She explained she had never revealed the truth because she feared losing Genevieve's respect. She believed confessing the past would only reopen wounds no one could heal. Callum listened quietly before walking toward the elderly woman whose shoulders shook beneath decades of regret. He remembered Eleanor teaching him that forgiveness was never about pretending pain never happened. It was about refusing to let pain become the final chapter. He gently embraced Meredith. No speeches. No accusations. Only a son holding the mother who had carried sorrow for nearly 40 years. Genevieve watched them through blurred eyes. For the first time in her successful life, she understood that wealth could purchase comfort but never replace family. The weeks that followed transformed every life involved. Genevieve invited Callum and Elodie to lunch after school each afternoon whenever schedules allowed. At first Elodie felt intimidated by expensive restaurants and polished offices. She carefully folded every napkin and whispered thank you for every meal. Genevieve noticed the little girl's kindness and remembered how lonely she herself had been as a child waiting for her mother to return from work. Soon the corporate headquarters began seeing an unexpected visitor every Friday afternoon. Elodie carried colorful drawings she proudly taped onto the office refrigerator. Employees who once feared their demanding CEO started smiling more often because Genevieve smiled more often. The company culture slowly changed. Executive meetings included discussions about supporting working parents, expanding employee childcare, and funding adoption assistance programs. Callum never accepted special treatment. He continued working hard, insisting dignity came from earning his own path. Yet Genevieve quietly arranged an interview for him in the company's facilities department based entirely on his skills. His years of maintenance experience impressed every manager. He received the position honestly, along with stable hours that finally allowed him to attend Elodie's school events without sacrificing income. Meredith visited frequently, slowly learning to become the grandmother Elodie had never known. Every sunny afternoon she helped her plant flowers, bake simple desserts, or read old storybooks. Sometimes Meredith cried while watching the child laugh in the garden because she saw echoes of both Genevieve and Callum within the same joyful smile. One afternoon, months later, Callum returned to the same park bench where everything had begun. He removed the old photograph from his wallet once more. The edges remained worn, but it no longer represented unanswered questions. It represented survival, forgiveness, and the extraordinary truth that love can remain alive even after decades of silence. Genevieve joined him carrying coffee for both of them. They watched children play beneath bright afternoon sunlight. Neither spoke for several minutes because some moments become too meaningful for words. She finally admitted that finding his wallet had been the only business decision she had ever made without thinking. Sometimes life does not announce miracles with grand celebrations. Sometimes they appear as something forgotten on a park bench waiting for one compassionate person to notice. Callum smiled, thinking about how close he had come to losing the wallet forever. Had another person found it, the photograph might have been discarded as meaningless clutter. Instead, kindness had connected two broken histories that were never truly meant to stay apart. Meredith eventually framed a restored copy of the faded photograph and placed it above her fireplace. Beside it stood a new family portrait taken during a bright afternoon picnic. 3 generations smiled together beneath clear blue skies, proving that even the deepest wounds can become the strongest foundations for love when truth is finally welcomed. Before this story comes to its close, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe forgiveness is stronger than regret, or share a moment when kindness unexpectedly changed your life. Your words may become the encouragement someone else desperately needs today. As the warm afternoon sun settled gently across the park, Genevieve realized that the greatest treasure she had ever discovered was never hidden inside company vaults, investment portfolios, or corporate victories. It had been waiting quietly inside a weathered wallet carried by a hard-working single father who refused to let hardship steal his kindness. Callum understood that although the past could never be rewritten, the future could always be filled with grace. Meredith finally found peace because the child she had mourned for decades stood beside her not with anger but with compassion. Elodie grew up surrounded by a family that had once been scattered by heartbreak but was reunited through hope. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Thank you for being part of our family and our community, where every story reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can change generations forever.